everyone, and welcome to Language is Hard. So today we are going to take a look at my language learning notebook planner journal thing. I guess I don't really know what to call this. It's kind of like a bullet journal, kind of like a planner. I don't know. We'll see. But this is what I use to kind of organize my language learning to help me kind of juggle trying to learn multiple languages at once. So let's just get into it. First off, this notebook, as you can see, it has four sections, and then one of the sections is divided into 4 more sections. You can really use any notebook you like. I bought this one in Korea at a store that literally just sells everything. But you can use any kind of notebook you want. As you'll see in the video, I could have definitely used just a 3-subject notebook instead of 4. But yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. So my first section, the red tab, is information and materials. So here, I wrote down all of the languages I want to learn. So I have Korean, Chinese, German, and Spanish. And down here are the relative levels that my languages are currently at. So these levels are based on the Common European Framework of Reference, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, so as you can see, I have each language, and then I kind of added Japanese. Came later, so that's why it's all alone on its own page. But yeah, so this was just a general overview to give me an idea of what I'm trying to do. So then the next few pages are what I was just talking about, the Common European Framework of Reference. So if you don't know what this is, it was created as a way to kind of measure someone's language level. So it was originally created for the European languages, but it can also be applied to pretty much any language because the criteria is pretty, what's the word I'm trying to say? Language is hard, guys. The criteria is pretty universal. It can be applied to any language. So there are 3 levels: the basic user, independent user, and proficient user, and each level is divided into 2 categories. So the lowest level is A1, and then you move to A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. And C2, you're basically fluent. You know the language very well at this level. All right, so then next, still in section 1, we have materials. So this page, as you can see, I kind of marked it off with a piece of washi tape. But here what I've done is I wrote down each language that I'm learning, and I'm keeping track of all of the materials that I have and that I have found. So I have each one divided into apps, ebooks, MOOCs and websites, and paper books. And if you don't know what a MOOC is, MOOCs are like like those open source classes. So what you find on FutureLearn or edX or Coursera, those are MOOCs. If you've never checked them out, definitely do that. They're super useful, and if you like learning, it's just great. So for each language, then I write down any sort of materials that I have or that I find. And this is useful for when, like if I find something and it's maybe more advanced, like I'm not at that level yet, I can write it down here so I have it to come back to later. Or, you know, if I'm using something and it's just not working for me, I can refer to this to try to see if I have something else or have found something else in the past. So yeah, I really like having this section in my book, and then that is all I have for section 1 so far. So section 2, yellow is goals. So this is probably the most important part of the book to me anyway. So here we have, this was supposed to be 2018 goals, but it kind of turned into January goals. So I had never done a book like this before. This is a brand new thing I tried this year, and I was inspired by Abigail from Polyglot Progress. So if you've never checked out their channel, definitely go do that. It's amazing. They have a lot of really interesting content, and it's very cool, and you'll see there are a couple things in this section that are ideas that I took from them because they are just amazing ideas. So yeah, so in 2018 these were my goals, like where I wanted to get each language. And since I had never done this before, I made really ambitious goals so that come the next few months I could kind of look back and be like, okay, and just see what is actually going to be possible. But so then I broke it down into monthly and what I wanted to do each month, and then broke that down into week, and then daily. As you can see, I didn't actually put anything in there. But so I have my Korean, Chinese, German, Spanish, and then I dabbled a little in Esperanto, so that's why that's there. And then when I added Japanese later, I put that down here. So I don't know what any of that is. Anyway, so this was another thing that I took from Abigail from Polyglot Progress. She has a great video where she talks about this. So each line for me in mine, each line represents 10 minutes because I wanted to use this to track my time I was spending learning languages as well. So each line, or each color, sorry, is a different language. So pink is Korean, purple is German, green is Japanese, red is Chinese, and the yellow is Esperanto. So, I find this to be extremely helpful because I can see at the end of the month, I can look back and see what languages I spent a lot of time on, which languages I did not spend a lot of time on, and it kind of helps me to evaluate my goals for the next month. So you can see I spent a lot of time on German, so I could kind of go back and be like, okay, is German, clearly it's something I wanted to spend time on, but is it something I want to focus on? Should I continue doing this? Or as you can see, I spent a whopping 10 minutes on Chinese this whole month, so I can look at that and be like, okay, is Chinese something that I want to spend more time on, or is it something that I'm kind of just, you know, doing whenever I have spare time? So then I also have this thoughts and reflection section. So in here, I just write notes about the month. So during these 2 weeks, I had a lot of stuff happening at work, so I would come home from work and just be exhausted. And the last thing I wanted to do was study languages. So I can look back and see like, oh, well, that's why there's like nothing happening these 2 weeks, because I had this thing with work going on. And then down here at the end of the month, I totaled how much time I spent doing each language. So then I have this calendar. So this calendar, I wrote down kind of what I wanted to accomplish each week, and this became obsolete within like 1 week. So I ended up not even using this at all. Some rogue Post-its. All right, so then for February, I kind of sat down and wrote down what I wanted to do. So as you can see, as you saw, I had started studying Japanese like halfway through the month, so at the beginning that had not been one of my goals. So I added that I wanted to learn 1 to 2 of the hiragana series. And so the thing with Japanese is I'm not actually trying to learn Japanese. So I studied linguistics in university, and I really love linguistics, and I think language systems are really interesting. So at this point, I'm just trying to learn the writing system in Japanese just because I find it interesting. I'm studying Korean, and the grammars of those two languages are very similar. So once I have a better grasp of Korean, I might go back and then study Japanese. But for now, I'm just learning the writing system. So then, when I looked at what I had done over the month, as you can see, I spent the most time on Korean and German. So I decided that yes, those were the two I want to focus on primarily. And then I wrote down what I wanted to do each week with those languages. And then, so Chinese, I really like Chinese. And at one point I spoke quite a bit of Chinese. Like I could hold a simple conversation. I watched a clip of an old Chinese movie that had no subtitles, and I understood maybe like 60% of it, which was super thrilling. But then I stopped. I started studying Korean because I was moving to Korea, and I've forgotten basically everything I learned in Chinese. So I want to each month actively try to bring back some of that information. So for this month, I just want to remember how to count, because I knew how to count in Chinese. And one of Korea's number systems is very similar to Chinese, and that actually, because of that, it took me forever to learn how to count in Korean. But now that I know how to count in Korean, the Chinese went away. So I want to go back and try to learn the Chinese numbers. So then here were my revised goals for February. I changed these a little bit just based on what I've been accomplishing, what I think I can accomplish. Esperanto still hanging out down here. Then my monthly and my weekly. And as you can see, I got rid of Spanish because in January I studied a grand total of 0 Spanish. So I just decided, I was like, oh, clearly that's not a priority for me, so I just got rid of it. Well then, here I wrote down my Chinese and Japanese, so I want to learn the numbers. As you can see, I have not done that yet. And then I had said 1 to 2 series, and here I guess I decided on 2 to 3 instead. So this month I have done 1 of them. So yeah, so I'm working on that, and this is just a note to add it to one of the other teals, one of the other tabs. This should actually say green, and you'll see that in a little bit. So here is what I've done so far this month, and as you can see, I've done pretty well. I don't know what happened last week. I think I forgot to track my time. And if I don't have this notebook with me, I have a note app in my phone, so I've just been writing down like, oh, German, 20 minutes, so I can keep track and fill this in later, but I think I just forgot to do that last week because I know I studied more than this. Anyway, what you'll find interesting about this is, okay, so the purple is German, pink is Korean, green is Japanese, and as you can see, I've gotten like 40 minutes of Chinese, the red, in there. I don't know if you can tell on the monitor, but all of this is not purple, it is blue. Blue is Spanish. So I got rid of the Spanish, and somehow the Spanish came back. So what happened was, so I studied Spanish in high school, and so I do know a decent amount of Spanish. But I started watching a Netflix show that is primarily in Spanish, and Narcos. A lot of you've probably heard of it or seen it. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to dedicate all this time to watching this show, this would be a good time to brush up on my Spanish, because that's a great way to learn, and it's good listening practice. So I started studying some Spanish because If you don't know, the show is about Pablo Escobar and drug trafficking. And it turns out that when you learn a language in high school, they happen to not teach you words like to bribe, to kidnap, to murder. Weird, right? You'd think those would be the first things you learn in a foreign language, but no. No, apparently, turns out I don't know how to say those words in any of the languages I have studied. Anyway, so I started studying some Spanish again, and then doing some Korean, German, Japanese, and Chinese. And as you can see, Esperanto's gone. I'm not studying Esperanto anymore. It's just, I didn't love it. I just didn't love it. All right, so then here is my thoughts and reflections section that I can fill out throughout the month or once I'm done. So we have this month's calendar, which it is now the 16th, and this month's calendar is, this isn't happening. Next month I'm probably not gonna do a calendar at all because 2 months now, it's just clearly that just doesn't work for me. All right, so the next tab, the green tab, so this is cheat sheets. So what I've done here is I'm just basically writing down the important pieces of the language, like the very basic things you should know in the languages, at least for Korean and German, Chinese, and Japanese. I'm kind of doing something else. But then, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I live in Korea, so a lot of times I will send text messages to Korean people, and sometimes we'll have these conversations in Korean. So when I learn something new, I've been writing it here. And this is actually like a super good way to learn because, these are things from actual conversations. So I've heard them, written them down, and then I've already probably used all of these at least one more time because, they're things you actually say in conversations. Things like, okay, I speak a little Korean. To be bored, the verb for bored, that's right, and cute. So then for German, I just have the present tense verb endings. Those are good to know. For Chinese, I just wrote down what I'm learning this month, so the numbers. And then Japanese, I'm just writing down what I have already learned. So I have made some progress with this, so that's good. And then the last section, I don't know what to do with this section. So far it's kind of just been like scratch paper. I don't actually know what to do with this section, and maybe I just won't do anything with this section or use it if I run out of room somewhere else. But yeah, so that is my language learning planner journal thing. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful in your language learning endeavors. So let me know if you do something like this or if you're going to try something like this. I would love to hear your ideas as well. Tell me what I should put in this last tab. And let me know if there's anything else you want to see. I'm probably going to also upload a video of my language learning notebook, so stay tuned for that. All right, until then, thank you and goodbye. I should think of a sign off, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching.